Hello again. This week's devotional thought comes from Psalm 46, which is a poem written for our encouragement, and it is a psalm full of hope. So let's read together Psalm 46, verses 1 to 3, and then verse 10 to 11. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." The psalmist here paints a clear picture of chaos. He's using the really strong metaphor to talk about the sea being out of control, and he describes mountains that tremble and shake. And as we read this description, we feel with him the fear of a sea without limits, of huge waves crashing and rolling and earthquakes shaking the earth violently. And he leads us to imagine with him a world out of control. And we too, when we watch the news these days, we see chaos all around us. Our lives have been turned upside down the last month. For the psalmist, the chaos is political. He's afraid of neighboring countries invading and destroying the land. For us, the chaos is a pandemic and everything that has brought to our lives. What we share with the psalmist, though, is a fear of an unknown future. We're worried about the waves that might overwhelm us, and we sense there's danger around us, and we feel a little bit like a toy boat tossed around by the waves of the sea. But verse 2 says, "We will not fear." How is it that we can have no fear in the face of something like a worldwide pandemic? The only one who could possibly calm our fears is God himself. Look at verse 1. It says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." And it continues, "Therefore, we will not fear." The only reason to not fear is the strong and grounded presence of our God. God is our refuge. A refuge is a place of safety. It's a place of rest, and it's a place where we run when we don't have any other hope. And it's a place where we find protection from the storm. Notice that the psalmist doesn't expect that the chaos will stop. In verse 2, he says that we will not fear though the earth give way. It's as if he expects the chaos, and he's right. We live in a broken and a fallen world, and we will experience pain and sadness, trials and death and sickness. All these things will continue to happen. But in the midst of this reality, we find peace in God, our refuge. Even as the storms rage and it seems like all is lost, we dwell in safety in the shelter of our God. So in times like this, we must run to him. And we hide ourselves in him as our refuge, and we find there strength and peace for our souls. And look what God says to us in verse 10. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." God knows that we were not made to handle the chaos. He says to us, "Come to me, stand behind me, let me handle this." He says, just be still for a moment. What is it that we really need today? We need to remember who God is. Be still and know that I am God, he says. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. We can't control what's happening all around us, but in the middle of everything, God himself is there. And he doesn't change, and he hasn't left us, and he has not forgotten us. He still hears our prayers. He knows the pain and the fear that we're facing, and he is right there to support us with his love and with his strength, because nothing is out of his control. And the call to be still is a difficult one. But I want to urge you to find a place away from the news, away from social media, just for a while, and be still and know that he is God. Just reflect on who he is. Run to that safe place, to that refuge and that fortress that God provides for us, and find there rest from the chaos. Brothers and sisters in Christ, these words were written for each of us. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear.